uh, deadliest of the two nights so far in Israel. 10 confirmed dead so far, several hundreds injured in um, mostly in three places where ballistic missiles from Iran hit. And yeah, the attack was not just on a bigger scale than the night before, but perhaps the biggest bombardment of Israeli civilians in its history so far. Again, something that was to be expected, and was if we do put it in a context of what could have been, we are still hopefully not, in a heading towards something that will be resolved soon enough, and the Israeli people are holding up. But yeah, I'm sure it is a very difficult day in Israel today, and we can only hope that it is much more difficult in Iran, and the difficulties in Iran will continue, and the difficulties in Israel will end soon, as the Iranian regime is chipped away at and falls. Welcome to the Daily Objective, the first of two shows today. I'm joined by Marco and Richard. Marco.
Yeah, it's a sad day for Israel. But again, as you mentioned, it could have been much, much worse. I mean, th this is another proof of how well prepared Israel and its fighting forces and all the structure they put in place to protect themselves are. This later attack, the IDF confirmed it was about 70 missiles, and of course a few strikes, and sorry, a few drones. And yeah, the victim were 10, mainly located around just all around Tel Aviv, really. Lots of hits towards Haifa, which is the main major port, and I think a refinery oil processing place was actually partially damaged. Yeah, it's a sad time, but just to put it in context, the BBC reported it today, and the jihadis at the BBC managed to rustle together the headline. Missiles from Iran cause casualties in Israel. I mean, normally when a Palestinian chips a nail, we hear about it, but here it's just casualty caused by Iranian strike. It's just, the whole propaganda machine is back in business. But of course, Israel is being hit, by the same time as being hitting back. By now, 720 assets have been hit by the IDF in 170 strikes, and they still continue. Today, in fact, the IDF warned for the first time the Iranian citizens living around military infrastructure and weapon factory to clear out. This is a very, a very clear statement that Israel will continue pounding Iran, which at some point will be unable to cause the kind of destruction that's caused in the last couple of days.
I'm very conscious when I comment on this stuff that we're sitting, thousands of miles away in London, and it's very difficult to put yourself into the mentality and the experience of what this must be like. And obviously, London has been through, a blitz in the past, and you can see evidence of the consequences of that all over London in terms of where buildings are now built, that really show how peppered London was at the time by the Nazis. And that combined with looking at the pictures of rocket fire and missile fire in over Israel only gives you a hint of what it must be like. I think it's worth stressing, however, though, that this is a war. This is not a skirmish. This is not the kind of PR response that has happened in the past when there's been a token gesture in essence of a response from places like Iran over Israel. This is the actual war taking place, and you've got to put the perspective of what Israel has already achieved in terms of that. Now, whilst it's extremely distressing to see any buildings in Israel damaged and obviously people lose their lives, and especially in the context of having things like the Iron Dome and the kind of protective measures which Israel has, the fact that Israel has, according to the IDF, already got aerial superiority from Western Iran to Tehran is a mighty achievement. The fact it's already decimated the leadership of the Iranian military in so many ways. You look at those charts and the number of eliminated head personnel that have been taken out is remarkable for a conflict that's been going for merely a couple of days, at least in earnest, of course. And of course, the effect on reducing the amount of weaponry and missile launching facilities that Iran had, and how much more deadly this would have been were they not to have taken the measures in advance of neutering Hezbollah to such an extent, and of course the Houthis as well, because the key element with Iran has been not only its own capability, but the fact that it's worked through proxies and through criminal elements and non-state actors and all that for so long, and that has put Israel at risk for so long. And in the context of that, not to belittle the loss of life within Israel, this is a minor for the amount of achievement that Israel is making. But that doesn't make it easy. War is not easy, and of course, the leaving war as long as possible through endless diplomacy in the face of aggression and threat, which is not countered, only makes that war worse. And of course, those are the consequences which are being felt at the moment.
Yeah. We have Eyal Reichel joining us from Israel, and Eyal, you joined me on some of the 7 hour stream that we did when this started, and I think it was while you were on, you were talking about we got the news that the drones were heading towards Israel, and you were saying they're probably going to shoot ballistic missiles to coincide with the drones. I guess Israel, did harm their ability to shoot ballistic missiles enough that that didn't happen at that point, but it did happen last night. So drones were launched, and when they arrived, basically to overwhelm the Israeli air defenses, the ballistic missiles were shot as well, and yeah, this caused damage that had not yet been seen so far.
Yeah, so first of all, as I said in earlier streams, I am convinced, as well as many other Israelis in relevant positions, that the Iranians launched their ballistic missiles when it's dark in Iran, which is basically the same time as the night in Israel, simply because there are some actions that need to be done by personnel above ground in order to launch ballistic missiles. So they'd rather do it when it's dark and it's harder for Israel, that has air superiority, to find them and track them and kill them. Uh, it's very hard. War is not easy. As I said, again, I'm relatively in a good situation regarding shelter and regarding amenities. Yet, and people are having it's not easy here. Yet I am very satisfied with the way Israel is dealing with Iran, and we managed to significantly reduce their capabilities. Of course, it's almost not possible to completely wipe out all of their capabilities since day zero of the war. Yet we've managed to make a very big blow on their military leadership facilities and launching capabilities. I remind once again that reports said that the leader of Iran ordered for a launch of 1,000 missiles, and the best they can do is several, like, I don't know, up to 200 missiles. Last night, I think they fired I'm not sure about that, but I think it was less than 100. Uh, they are just, I'd like to compare what Iran is doing now to the death marches that Nazi Germany did, and I'll explain. In the end of World War II, the Nazis kept sending Jews to the gas chambers, even though they were losing, and like if they had a little bit of, like, common sense and not just driven by crazy religious ideology of death, they would have tried to like focus the resources on surviving, maintaining themselves, trying to last. But no, they figured out, okay, we're going down. We might as well just try to kill as many Jews as we can. So they kept delivering Jews to the gas chambers. And then when the the camps were liberated and they could no longer send Jews to gas chambers, they just says, okay, we're going to march them around Europe in the cold winter. This is the best we can to kill as many Jews as we can, so Jews would die during the marches and we can kill them during the marches, even though it has completely no sense in regard to their own willingness to exist. Like, why would you spend your resources on this? And the reason is the core of their ideology is death, is destruction, and it was aimed at killing the Jews. And I think the fact that now Iran is just doing whatever they can so they can fire their missiles at the Israeli home front is it's the same ideology, is the same insanity. They could have surrendered, they could have do something else. I don't know. They could have tried to use the resources for better things, but no, they're like, okay, we're gonna fire ballistic missiles at the Israeli home front until we're gone. Um,
So
so this is basically the same. It's the same kind of enemy we're dealing in this regard.
So let me push back on that. And I have to say, on yesterday's show, had you said exactly the same thing, I would not have pushed back. And I overnight, I was talking to a friend who said, what if they right now there's still the possibility that they'll go back to the negotiating table with Trump, that they'll they're now the US is in a better negotiating position, or what have you. So there is so this friend said, what if they already have a nuke? But even if they don't have a nuke, they could have stuff that they haven't yet used, because they know how Israel works, and they know that in Israel, if a few people die, you'll get a certain response, and if a few more, you'll get a different response, and if thousands all of a sudden die, Israel will do things that it can do now but doesn't.
I think we have crippled the Iranian capabilities and they're doing whatever they can. I think they're in panic. I think, as I said, their ideology is about death and destruction and about just disregarding life on this earth. And this is what we're dealing with. And I'm glad we're destroying their oil refineries and their gas supplies and whatever the infrastructure they have. I think we should start destroying all of their systems of uh, ruling and maintaining civil order. We should destroy their police stations, their police commandments, all of those facilities. So our interest right now is that Iran will lose control over its citizens, and I hope this is the next step. I don't know, and I think okay, I don't know, but I don't want. Obviously, I don't want. The worst case scenario for me right now is that after all we've been through, there'll be like a negotiation again and like some sort of a quote unquote breakthrough that would allow the Ayatollah regime to stay in power, and in favor, the fighting will end for now. This is the worst case scenario because after all we've been through, we finally have an opportunity to take down this regime and cure the world of this disease. This regime is a disease that affecting the whole Western world, is a cancer on earth. And it's time to take this regime down. And we should have done it way earlier. And now we cannot allow ourselves to stop. We cannot allow ourselves to go to any ceasefire. We need to keep going until there is no longer an Ayatollah regime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Daniel, for the super chat, and thank you, Jonathan, for another super chat. Yeah, Zion asks, is Alex okay? She is. She will hopefully join us on this stream soon. And yeah, Marco, to pick up on the point you have made, I was thinking about the whole issue with civilians and with the fact that Iran is, the country most likely to be civilized if the regime is removed of all uncivilized countries in the Middle East, i.e., countries that are not Israel. Um, but I also don't like the idea of Israel going out of its way to spare civilians at potentially the expense of its own civilians. So for me, I mean, I'd like to see Israel say something like, yeah, of course, I don't see it happening, but this is going to be the end of the regime. And a call to the Iranian people, but a call with, a clear call to action with an or else. You have to rise up now against all government institutions, and you have very limited time, 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. And Israel will help you to whatever extent they can. But, if we don't see the regime actually starting to fall, yeah, all hell will really break loose, not in the Gaza sense, but in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki sense.
Sure, no, I agree. The only problem that Iran is not Gaza. Iran cannot be dealt with in a few hours like you could have done with Gaza. It's a massive logistical challenge. Already, the IDF has cleared the corridor, as Richard pointed out, from Iraq to Tehran. And even the few radar points in between have been taken out as well. So give them a certain freedom in the air. However, Israel has got a limited amount of weaponry. And these planes, they are super sophisticated. They need maintenance, constant maintenance. It's not like a car that you can drive until you run out of fuel. Well, first of all, the fuel is a big issue because you have to refuel these planes. So you must have a logistical ways of refueling the planes, going through the maintenance cycle. So you cannot keep up this kind of pressure as they've done until now. That's why they're hitting where the Iranian regime actually feels. That's why they're trying to cripple the gas and oil reservoirs and around Tehran itself, just so the population start feeling the pinch a bit and will probably rise up against the regime. But hitting Iran in a way that would properly cripple them, it's a big logistical problem. I mean, some of the facilities are hundreds of meters underground, so Israel couldn't do it without support of the US. They actually asked officially for the support of the US, and the US, until now, they're just saying, well, we're not involved. Hopefully, this is not going to last because, as Yael was pointing out, and you were pointing out, we cannot go back to a situation where we deal with Iran, with the regime, with the Islamic regime of Iran, because you cannot trust them. Just like the recent negotiation with Trump, they were just buying time. They just needed a few more days, a few more hours to develop a viable weapon, and then they would have deployed it, they would have used it. So you cannot trust these people to be sensible and to be able to sit around the table. And that's why it's just so infuriating that people like France, UK, and Germany are already starting to push for Iran to join negotiations. This is absolutely the wrong thing to do. This is absolutely, effectively, saving the regime at the last minute. But you can only hope that some mistake from the Iranian might hit or damage or even chip some U.S. military assets, because at that point the U.S. will not have any excuse not to help Israel, physically help Israel. So until that point, unfortunately, it's a matter of time before Israel will be unable to do the kind of strikes that it's been doing until now, and that will be devastating.
I have much more confidence than you, Razi, much more optimism that the Iranian people, those that are against the regime, will be rising up very soon, and probably already are. And the extent to which there's news blackouts on that kind of thing is part, obviously, the nature of the dictatorship under which they live. I think the this is a people who are many of which are extremely oppressed by that dictatorship. They've been waiting for an opportunity for a long time. Some of them have shown extreme courage at earlier junctures, and this is such an evident point for that. I don't think it needs a statement from Israel to make it explicit. I don't think that makes any difference. Seeing stuff on fire, seeing the decapitating Iranian leadership, seeing the nuclear weaponry hit, seeing the air power, air superiority of Israel, all of that it is far more than any statement Israel could ever write or issue, frankly. And I think we should also recognise, and of course it's impossible to know, and certainly impossible to know whilst you're in the thick of it, but obviously there must have been a significant amount of support from Iranian dissidents from within Iran in order to enable Mossad to do everything they did in terms of smuggling in the weaponry, the drones, etc., in order to get to the point they have already, and of course identifying where the targets would be and where that people would meet and all that kind of stuff. So the network within Iran that is trying to help the Iranian regime fall has already been presumably at extensive play within this. So I think that's worth mentioning. The fact, but I take your point though that although Israel is warning Iranians to move away from military installations in the same way that they obviously warn Gazans ahead of attacking buildings, etc. That's how they operate. But so long as you absolutely remove the capability and you don't hold back. And I think the important thing that we need to see from Israel is further strikes, not letting up in the momentum of this. Because as we've seen too many times in the past, it's these first few days that are absolutely crucial in terms of not letting anybody tell you can stop. In order to make sure that those voices from the UK, from France, who are constantly trying to wave bits of paper in the air and claim you can still come around the table and negotiate with dictators or whatever is, that needs to not have any airtime whatsoever because you're concentrating on the military action. I think one of the things that you may see in terms of ER's point about whether the Iranians are panicking and whether this is the maximum they can do. One of the things we may see in the future, and I think Israel is cognizant of this, is the softer targets of Israelis and Jews, frankly, across the world, but particularly outside of Israel. I think Israel's already warned people returning to Israel from Egypt or from Jordan through those
Crossings.
through those crossings that they are at risk if they're essentially out in the open as soft targets. So it wouldn't be surprising. It would obviously be extremely bad and devastating, but it wouldn't be surprising if Iran chose to simply go for Jews and Israelis wherever they could as quickly as they could in that lashing out form that Iyaz talking about with the comparison to the Second World War. So whether that happens or not, we will find out, obviously. But the contrast is clear, isn't it? Iran strikes civilians. Israel is trying to go for military targets. All of the heads of the military and the nuclear facilities, which shouldn't have existed in the first place. And it's been the delay that has allowed them to get to this point.
Yeah. A couple of things. It's not just that Mossad is getting help from Iranians on the ground. Mossad is Iranians basically in Iran. It's I don't know how if there are any, perhaps there are some Israelis somewhere on the ground, but yeah, that whole network is obviously massive. It must be many, many, many thousands of people involved, so that like to get to the point where you really know where everybody who you need to kind of know where they are. You know where they are at every point, and yeah, very very hopeful that we are already at the stage where Iranian leaders, not military leaders, but political and religious leaders, are targets. Because a couple of days ago we were talking about how Israel said if Iran strikes Israeli civilians, Israel will strike oil fields, and they did. Last night I saw somebody, there was an Israeli unnamed source quoted on Israeli news saying that Khamenei is not off the table, like targeting him. So yeah, if it's not off the table, it should be on the table, and yeah, it should be done. Okay, I have a few more points, but yeah, I want to go to the fact that, I'm watching the news from Israel, and even on a devastating like night like this, you see the resilience of Israelis in after 20 months of war. I think Israelis clearly know that whatever they're going through now is absolutely necessary. Israelis didn't realize that even Hamas and Hezbollah could be existential threats, and were, and at this point are not. But everybody knows that Iran is an existential threat, and it is being removed. And yeah, the tough days or weeks ahead are, again, nothing compared to what could happen. And I still see, even in the worst moment, you see, some humor in news coverage and stuff, which is yeah,
Okay.
Israelis get
So
the context, seemingly.
I'd like to address it from the other angle, which is for decades there are within Israel there are intellectual agents of destruction. There is NGOs and organizations that funded from getting their funds from Europe and Qatar and even USAID back in the day when it was still active. And for decades those organizations are basically telling the Israelis that they are immoral, they're evil, they have to give up themselves, and they're to be blamed, they're at fault, they're evil, and they have to give up themselves. And those organizations' greatest success was, of course, in the 90s when we gave up Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, and then in the early 2000s, in 2005, when we completely withdrawal of Gaza, and things kept going worse and worse and worse, and they kept feeding us the poison that it's our fault, that we're wrong. And they were they were managing to do it. So the mainstream of Israelis were kind of buying into their lies. And I think the exact point where everything changed, where the water shifted, it was in October 7th. So October 7th is many things. It's a great disaster, and it's a horrible tragedy, but it's also a very effective counter power and an opposite campaign to what Israelis have been fed and are still there is still attempt to feed them with these lies and propaganda. And this attempt still goes on, and there are still evil voices in Israel calling for Israel to stop and to surrender itself. And they're framing it in all of this romanticism of like, we have to end war, and this price is not worth it. And look at what this government has, Israeli government has brought us to, and all of these lies. And the Israelis are just not buying it. And I see those organizations are no longer receiving the moral sanction they are used to, because those organizations got moral sanction from Israelis, from honest Israeli and decent Israeli men who really thought that those evil organizations are actually kind-hearted and wanting a better future for Israel. And I think after October 7th, everybody realized their bluff, and this is a very important trend. And now with this context of Israelis finally understanding what is really going on and not buying into the evil propaganda that is already exist within Israel, unfortunately, with this context, I think seeing the Israelis understand what is going on here, understand that the horrible nights we're experiencing is a price that is very, how do I say it? This price is justified because by paying this price, we're preventing a future Holocaust. By paying this price now, by fighting against evil, which is not easy at this state. If we would have done it earlier, it would have been. But as of now, we finally managed to fight evil. And as I said in previous shows, we had to go through a slow process of taking the Iranian proxies one by one because it was not possible to just go against all of them at once. So it couldn't be like, okay, October 8th, let's go against Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq, the Syrian regime, and the Iranian regime all at once. And I'm very proud and very glad that we managed to take him down one by one during this war. We have limited things we can do at once. We have a lot of political pressure from the entire uh, international community. We had the Biden regime, which was quite difficult, and that's an understatement. So we did all of that one by one, and now we're in the climax. In the memes, Israeli call it the final boss, and that's really what it is in a sense. And we bite our lips and we brace ourselves and we do what we can and we try even to keep with our routine a little when we're able and we support our military and our Mossad and our Air Force and all of those important uh, all of our heroes doing whatever it takes for us to survive and to understand that our like life is a long-term process and there are prices to be paid now to eliminate threats so we can continue and live and flourish. And one more thing, just besides of what I was just saying, like a different subject. So you were mentioning Mossad presence in Iran. So I think a good analogy for that will be the French resistance in World War II. So there are people who are persecuted by the regime and they cannot resist it openly, at least not to some extent. So what they do, they basically resist this horrible, evil, illegitimate regime in any way they can, in secret, and Israel is a great aid for them, of course, and that's a good thing. And also the Iranian resistance, they're doing a very important role, and they have a very uh, these are good people, and what they're doing is very important and very helpful.
Yeah, and yeah, in terms of the price being paid by Israelis, we've been critical of Israel for, most of how it chose to fight in Gaza so far, and it paid with the lives of hundreds of soldiers, and we have said on this channel that was entirely unjustified and unnecessary, because you know. Whatever Israel achieved could have been achieved better, without those soldiers being in harm's risk in harm's way. And essentially, the soldiers were put at risk to defend Palestinians. In this case, there is no choice. I mean, we could go back and say, why wasn't this done 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? But right now, Israel is doing everything it can to prevent Israelis from being hurt. And, so this is the price that is being paid is, is not preventable, and again, could have been much worse. And I have to say, yeah, we're talking about how Israelis are united, and yeah, this is a consensus in Israel, unlike some other things. Uh, Even the openly anti-Zionist, as in anti the existence of the state of Israel parties, the Arab parties as they're referred to. I saw at least one of them say, a leader of one of them say, both sides should stop. He's not even going full pro-Iran because that's difficult to do. But I do have to say, in the cesspool that is Twitter, you do find Israelis who are, maybe not openly siding with Iran, but have have more criticism for Israel than anyone else. I have to say, to the Israeli left, because I know we have Israeli leftists watching us. Sometimes they comment in the chat, "You people are morally irredeemable." There is really nothing. The only thing I kind of hope is dark as this is that, if missiles hit Israeli civilians, you people are among the casualties because you are absolutely despicable and vile. And yeah, um, I don't know to what extent you live by your values, but if you die by your values rather than good people, yeah, I can certainly live with that. There's another issue, Marco. We heard Friday morning that Britain immediately said, "We're not going to help defend Israel. We're not going to help. We're not going to shoot anything down." And of course, Keir Starmer is is evil, but doesn't have the Jeremy Corbyn commitment to evil, to like an evil ideology, and he can be swayed. And in a sense, it seems like he has been, in that he said, what was it? We're sending troops that we're sending something to help. I don't to help. We're going to help out. That was what I remember because he didn't specify who because he's that much of a he can't even defend what a piece of shit he is, unlike the more ideological ones. And I think Israel should be very, very careful who it accepts help from. The U.S. absolutely accept help from them. Any help from Britain will come at a cost that you don't want to pay. As we're talking about the price Israel is paying in Gaza, the price that Britain will ask for is more and worse of that, and basically to accept rewarding the Palestinians for October 7th with a state potentially.
Yes, I mean, people like Keir Starmer are particularly dangerous for Israel because he hasn't got a single principle. He hasn't got a backbone at all. He's just a blob. Everybody who scowls at him, he will just come up with a policy for them in order to appease them. He doesn't have any principle whatsoever. So the fact he tells one section of the population, yeah, we're gonna, I mean, during the election, his deputy went to a bunch of Muslims in the mosque, begging them for political support in exchange for when we're in power, we're going to help you. So that's what he's doing. He's talking on one side of the mouth towards Israel should have the right to defend itself. My wife is Jewish and blah 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 blah. And on the other side of the mouth is actually emboldening these factions in the UK. So much so that even yesterday, we had the usual retards in central London protesting in favor of Hamas, in favor of stop bombing the Palestinians, and some particularly super retarded idiot had flags, Iranian flags. I mean, at what point will you come out of the woodwork and cheer for Iran if you're not either cognitively crippled by stupidity and by the kind of tribalism that sways you, or you're just pure evil? So we're seeing this kind of people act abroad. We heard the psychotic politicians in the West trying to find a way out for Iran by calling for them to sit at the table, to stop fighting now. And of course, this means that Israel is paying a price which shouldn't be paying at all, because the fight against against Iran, is actually a fight that we should have fought as well. How many people in our cities, certainly in London and in the UK wider, have lost their life because of Iranian-sponsored terrorism? I mean, the kids in Manchester died because of push from Iran. I mean, the ideology and the kind of propaganda which has been spread across our countries, paid by Iran, is all over the place, and you see them through people like those at the protests. So Israel shouldn't be alone to pay a price. Israel shouldn't pay a price at all, because they've already done much more than we ever done in order to stop the Iranian regime. Iran has been terrorizing people across the world, including their own population, of course, for 46 years. I mean, this is ridiculous. The fact that Trump doesn't join straight away and puts all the military might behind Israel is just farcical. Iran and its Islamic regime shouldn't be allowed to exist another day. And we kind of seen in its response, first of all, by blocking internet access to everyone because they don't want people on the ground to organize against them. They don't want the Iranian citizen to actually see that the regime is on its last leg, and so that they don't want them to insurrect against them. You're seeing this kind of launching missile fewer and fewer at the time. Partially could be because for them it's logistically difficult, given that the echelon of the army will be decapitated. So perhaps there isn't as much coordination, but also because some of the missiles are on trucks, and as mentioned earlier on, they do it at night because you have to open the truck, point the missiles, and then launch it. So it takes time. And at the same time, because Israel has actually decimated not only the actual missiles, but also the facilities that support the use of the missiles. Last October, I think, they destroyed a fuel mixer, for example. I mean, you can't just fill these missiles at the petrol station. You need special fuel, special equipment. So all the kind of stuff is becoming rarer and rarer in Iran, and that's why they were trying to buy stuff from China. But hopefully, Israel will not have to pay any more price for effectively the war and the fight they're fighting on our behalf as well.
I think to see yesterday, as Marco mentioned, Trafalgar Square in London filled with Iranian flags and Palestinian flags is a product of people like Keir Starmer and the attitudes of the likes of him, and particularly when it's been known how much, as Marco mentioned, the Iranians have been behind terrorist activity. And to that point, the Director General of MI5 spoke to the UK Parliament only in March this year, and he said that since the start of 2022, the UK has responded to 20 Iran-backed plots posing lethal threats to British citizens and residents in the UK. Iran is already Britain's enemy, not somebody that you should be waving its flag for in Trafalgar Square, not somebody you should be agreeing to call to the table with your Prime Minister of the G7, saying that you should negotiate with them. It's appalling. And of course, what the head of MI5 was pointing out was how many of these criminal elements in non-state actors in other places that Iran uses to do its dirty work for it, including the Chechen-born Austrian in 2023 who was convicted of spying on Iran International UK headquarters and all of that, as well as the cyber attacks that are also instigated by Iran as well. It's not just Russia and North Korea that do that kind of thing, and of course. But in the UK, have we prescribed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization? No. Why? Because we can keep diplomatic channels open that way. Now that is just risible as a reason. When these people are out to kill you, and they're also out to damage the Iranian dissidents, many of which are located in London, many of which obviously when in 1979 when the Iranian revolution happened, many Iranians moved to London. And there is a big network within London that tries to support the overthrow of the Iranian regime, and lots of dissidents within London. And those are people also who have been under threat and attacked and killed within within the course of what MI5 is talking about here. So there is a clear threat. There is an act of war essentially declared by Iran against the UK. So there is no reason whatsoever why the UK should be appeasing them and not firmly on Israel's side.
Yeah. Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Yeah. Iran is an enemy. The UK, unlike other situations where the UK should give moral support, it absolutely makes sense for the UK to be involved in this, even symbolically, to say, yeah, we recognize that this is a threat to us. They did try to attack on our soil a couple of months ago. And when you're in that situation, people waving the flag of an enemy at a time of war, that is not free speech. That is giving aid and comfort to the enemy, and something should be done about that. But nothing, of course, is, and it doesn't make sense for the British government to arrest people here. They arrest people here, for random outbursts on social media, but it doesn't make sense to arrest even people waving the Iranian flag if you don't fully say this is an enemy and you're saying we're sending ships to show support or what have you. A couple of quick things. So I saw in the news that the president of Cyprus said that Iran has asked him to pass a message along to Israel, so he will talk to Netanyahu later. Netanyahu, I've given him a lot of advice. He very rarely takes it, but I will continue giving him advice. Yeah, I would take that call at a specific time when you can tell them to pass along a message to Khamenei and Pezeshkian to look up. That's the message. Speaking of looking up, I'm very careful with, there's things that you don't know are true or not, but one report that I don't know if it's verified that I've seen, and of course I've seen some pictures and videos, but they can be from any time of planes taking off from Tehran yesterday, multiple planes. And yeah, by the way, there's people claiming that among the fake news being spread that Netanyahu fled Israel because his plane was moved from Israel. Yeah, Netanyahu. There's just images and videos of him now in the one of the sites that have been hit. So that is not a thing. But yeah, if Iranian leaders have fled, that might not be the first thing to do, but they should absolutely be targets, and Israel should make it clear to whoever is harboring them that they are now a part of this war unless they give them up. Yeah.
Well, I would like to address first the discussion regarding the United Kingdom. And I think it is a good example for a phenomenon that is broadly happening in the West, and the United Kingdom, unfortunately, is quite spearheading it. And here is the British example, but you can apply it on most Western states. So in Britain, there is a big community of people from Arab descent, of Muslims, and those people make a choice that I condemn. And this choice they are making, it's not in their race, it's not in their blood, it's not about a certain collective, just a choice people make voluntarily. And this choice is to give moral sanction to the Ayatollahs, to Hamas, to jihad, to an attempt to take over people against their will and force them to become Muslim or die or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that those people are actively engaged in those actions. I assume the vast majority of them are not, but they are giving it a moral sanction. They are not saying this is wrong. I resist it. I fight it. I want it to stop. I condemn this is being done on my behalf, and on the name of my culture and religion. And I don't see this happening. Now, this mentality of giving moral sanction to evil is ought to be condemned. And now I'll move on to the second order of this problem. So the first order is those people choosing to give moral sanction to evil. The second order is the sanctioners of the sanctioners. So the people in the UK, and I think it's the majority, are giving moral sanction to the Muslim and Arab communities in the UK that give moral sanction to evil. Heck, some of the British people who are not related to the culture are actually give moral sanction to evil as well, which is the woke left and the pro-Iranian, pro-Ayatollah protests that are not only are being held by those people. And this phenomenon of ordinary people not condemning those who give moral sanction to evil, and I'm talking to the common people in Britain, your choice not to condemn evil or supporters of evil is the most urgent and dangerous threat on your lives, this choice you are making. And people give this choice many excuses. They can say, oh, well, it's about freedom of religion, it's about diversity. No, you cannot use religion as an excuse to support violence. You cannot have a diversity of opinions and under this argument accept opinions of violence and physical threats against you. And I'm not even calling for like criminal like for the government to arrest the sanctioners. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people should just condemn this behavior and this choice. People should reject it and condemn it, and not to support it, and not to love it, and not to cheer for it. The public in the UK should reject the Islamist and the jihadist and the death seekers, and also should condemn their supporters and sanctioners. And you cannot give people the approval to support evil or to say, yeah, I'm cool with that, just because they're in a different culture or a different religion. And people don't understand this. And the British government is fighting against people who are saying, I condemn this kind of behavior, and calling it hate speech. And this is the UK example, but it's happening all over the Western world to some extent. And this is a major problem, and people should wake up and address this real problem because it's starting to get too late. And I think the true motive for people allowing Muslims in the UK and people of Arab descent to support this evil is because they are afraid. They are afraid, and they're worried that to annoy them. They're worried to make them angry. They're worried that there will be like mayhem, and they want to keep this under control. But by not resisting this evil, you're only allowing it to become stronger and stronger and deeper within your system until it will be too late to resist.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Jeff says, defined Iranians should adopt the Patrick Henry slogan, "Give me liberty or give me death," from this regime. YouTube won't let you type it out fully, but I can read it out fully. And thank you, Jonathan, for another super chat. Yeah, I kind of touched on this point, but I see people, good people who are on the right side of this, talking about, uh, actually, also similar to what Jeff has just said in the super chat. I've seen people, post, freedom for Iran and so on, and I fully support that. But again, remember, freedom for Iran is something Iranians should fight for. It's not something Israelis should fight for. There are many countries in the world that we'd like to see liberated from totalitarianism. Iranians don't get kind of a special, extra treatment because their regime happens to target Israel. And it's a problem. During the Iraq War, again, whether you think it was right or not, the name of it was Operation Iraqi Freedom. Not, we had savages, fly planes into buildings, and now we're trying to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So yeah, even when good things are done in the West, they always have to be, packaged in some altruistic bullshit in order to be sold to the public, and that's not good long term. I mean, right now, if this is happening, I'll take whatever we can get. But yeah, in the long run, if we package things or justify doing good things in the name of altruism, in the name of helping those from whom the threat is coming, then yeah, that's not, the future isn't bright.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in Iran, apart from probably the Kurds and the girls who seem the only people to have balls among the Iranian population, there is the big the tradition of the Persian people, that they had their own culture. So I suppose after 46 years, whatever is left is probably not strong enough to motivate them to kick off kick out the regime, which is probably at its historic weak right now. It must be fairly easy for somebody organized to get rid of these Islamic monsters. But then again, it partially is. You're right. It's partially fear, but I think partially is the fact that by removing the existing regime, by standing up to whatever alternative, they effectively, most people will deny themselves the advantages that they take by supporting the regime. The same thing happens here in Britain, I think. Most people want to support the cause of the Iranian and the jihadis because they link themselves. That's why usually the support comes from extreme left, because the left, the Marxist element of society, are effectively working together with Islamic people. That's why you always have the socialist workers or the trade unions who are the most vocal against Israel itself, and always in favor of the Islamic side. So there is the fear partially of escalation, that people are afraid of being involved, but partially is also these people do not want to lose the benefits that the status quo, that the current system allows them to live for. So they certainly do not want freedom, because they do not want to be put in a position where they have to do something in order to earn the living. They do not want to. They want to exploit altruism, in fact, for their own benefit. They want somebody else to make sure that they can prosper at the expense of somebody else. All this while they want to be the savior of humankind, and they want to deny the fact that actually they're the exploiters and the people who want to rule over people.
I mean, Ayn Rand pointed out that you should judge and be prepared to be judged, and that the morality is not served. You know, there is no moral. You're not taking a moral position, and unless you actually take a moral position. You can't just avoid taking a moral position and claim that that is moral. That is not moral, particularly when the distinction between good and evil is as clear as it is here. And you see it defended in so many different ways. I mean, there's the economic argument as well, the fact that oil prices will go up. We can't afford to have the Strait of Hormuz blocked, and the impact on shipping and the costs of all our stuff being increased. And therefore you should what? Give in to the dictator who uses those two things as a reason for you to do exactly what the dictator wants? No, you're only making that dictator stronger when you reinforce their arguments in such a manner. You shouldn't have emboldened the dictator by enabling them to gain the economic advantages that they have by calling those things over you for so long. And of course, here on the BBC, on their flagship political program that's on every Sunday morning, they've had a couple of people on for interviews, including somebody from an Iranian think tank, to essentially threaten the UK on the BBC and tell us why we shouldn't get involved at all, and why it would be risky for us to do so. And of course, you've had the BBC fighting back, not against him necessarily, but more so against the Israeli ambassador, who was also on, saying why this is we should be thanking Israel here in the UK for taking this fight to the real enemy of all of us, of all of Western civilization, which is exactly what's happening. So I mean, and only to back up what ER and you, Razi, both said there in terms of the British, attitude for many people, And sadly, that is not to rock the boat, not to take a stance, to pretend that everybody is equal and that opinions are just different, and that being murderous and ideologically murderous is well, that's just a cultural oddity, or you glossing over it, or pretending that the good side of Western culture is doesn't exist, and therefore denigrating the West in order to elevate the savages from these places with their hideous ideologies. So all of that's certainly taken place. But there is also a silent majority who do recognize it, but yes, they do need to speak up. And it's important, as we say a number of times, they need to speak up in their own conversations with their own family, with their own friends. They don't necessarily need to be on a podium with a microphone, but not staying silent, not letting somebody go unchallenged who defends what the Palestinians or the Iranians are doing. That is where you make your stand.
Yeah, I know Marco and Richard, you guys read the Telegraph among, I think you read all the papers, but you read the Telegraph, right? Not to out you, not in that sense at least. There's a Tim Collins, I don't know if you saw what Tim Collins wrote today. That I'm not going to read all of it as we sometimes do on this show, but the title is "The Israelis Did a Great Job on Iran, but there's one possible flaw in their plan." Uh, and then it says it might have been better to leave the previous ineffective leadership in place. I mean, there's no war or military action that I remember that people don't say, what if somebody worse comes along? And if you were saying that about an almost nuclear armed Iran, yeah, I don't know I don't know how to even respond to that. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat.
I have a point.
Yes.
Preferring the lesser evil is eventually preferring evil over good. It doesn't matter how you spin it. The view of preferring the lesser evil when you have a choice to fight evil, it's completely irrational. And I'm putting aside situations when you just have doesn't have any choice, like you're completely cornered. But as long as you have a choice, as long as you can sustain yourself and build your life, you have a very uh, basic and a very deep and fundamental interest to eliminate evil. And the only alternative is that evil will destroy you eventually. There is no getting away with it.
Yeah, but I have to say, recommending something like this to Israel is not off-brand. Just a week ago or so, we were talking about how Netanyahu is arming Palestinians in Gaza to
Yeah, and I
fight
think
against
that's wrong.
Hamas. Which
That's
what?
wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so if you give that recommendation to Netanyahu, it's not gonna fall on deaf ears. Look, we were talking about the resilience of Israelis, and we talk about it, but we also see it on this show. Some of us are, shaken up from sitting in front of the television and watching the news. Eyal has been with us on every show we've done since this started, and Eyal, is in the area which is targeted. I don't want to give away his location. I know BBC Verify, the fine people there are watching and are trying to ascertain his exact location from the position of the sun. Yes, I will continue to repeat that joke. But yeah, if people haven't already been convinced that they should check out Victory Now, yeah, Victory does involve doing things militarily and then being what you advocate for as a human being. So yeah, thank you. Thanks again for being with us on every show so far. Of course, we're not expecting that to continue for every single show, especially since you might have to. You've already had instances where you had to run to the basement. That was for Houthi missiles. For these ones, yeah, you absolutely need to make sure that you are safe. But yeah, thanks again for that. And once again, everybody, I encourage you to check out victory.now. Parting thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I just want to say I'll do my best to participate in the shows and to remain alive. And thank you all for the support,
Not in that order.
and it's really heartwarming. Heartwarming. Yes, yes. First of all, I'll stay alive, and the rest is based on the consequences and circumstances.
Yeah. Marco, Richard, parting thoughts?
Yes, just pushing back the clock or when Iran will have a nuclear weapon is not good enough anymore. You know they will do it. So by going down the suggestion of the West, the suggestion of our politicians, Israel will make the mistake of just condemning to death the next generation. So has to be victory now. There's no other escape. The Islamic regime of Iran has to go now.
And only by toppling that regime will you end that nuclear program or stand any chance of ending that nuclear program. And that's the essential here. So, and I think everyone should be calling for that. It's amazing the extent to which the voices who are against nuclear weapons in every other area are often very silent when it comes to actually stopping Iran having nuclear weapons. But those are the leftist voices that we hear all too much of, and they should be pushed back upon. So I think what we're seeing now from Israel is the right kind of stuff, and that involves the same right kind of stuff from the people, from the Israelis themselves, in the face of what is a very difficult time. And I understand that, but this is such a necessary fight, and you know, our hearts go out to you, and with all the support that we can possibly offer from you know, the voices within the UK that do understand.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, for the super chat. Linda says, "Love to Israel, standing with you from America." Thank you. Yeah, America is the last hope, that humanity has. And I have to say, we are often critical of Trump in his and will continue to be very critical of Trump in some of his internal policies and his foreign policies and his policies towards Israel, including right now, we'd love to see it. Um, we'd love to see him more supportive and involved, but we have to remember the context and we have to remember what was the alternative. And yeah, Iran would have a nuclear bomb very soon had Kamala Harris been in power. So yeah, let's be grateful that that hasn't happened, and let's hope that after Trump we will have an improvement on all fronts in America and in the rest of the world. We are back here in 4 hours and 20 minutes with the second daily objective of the day. Like I said, for the time being, we will have two shows a day. We're calling both of them the daily objective, so we're not going to have an episodes of the reality show. But as you can see, this daily objective is longer than most episodes of the reality show and has as many people. So yeah, we will continue covering this. And for Hebrew speakers watching in an hour and 50 minutes, I will be doing my Hebrew podcast, Yaldei Midrachov, with Naftali. This is our first one since this war broke out. So yeah, you should watch that as well. And yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks guys for joining me. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in just over 4 hours.
Be
Thank
safe.
you very much.
Bye.